Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Where do we go from here? Liam Beefy Smith absolutely splatters Chris Eubank Jr. in round four. I've got to hold my hands up. I did not see that coming at all. Um, I not only picked Eubank Jr. to beat Liam Smith by stoppage late in the fight, but I saw a Liam Smith stoppage as being probably one of the most unlikely outcomes for this fight. So, boy oh boy, do I have egg on my face. But let's talk about the fight, if you can call it that. It went 4 rounds, as I say. Bear in mind, people, I did watch an early copy, and you know how they can be very choppy, not the best quality. So do bear with me in case there's something I maybe not mention or seems like I miss. Starting in round one, I thought both guys looked like they settled into the fight fairly well, at least from what I saw. Scoring, even though it's largely irrelevant, I gave the first round to Eubank just because I thought he was a bit more active with the jab. I remember him timing Liam Smith with a right hand on a couple of occasions, but I could see that Liam Smith was very much hot on his tail. Liam Smith wasn't far behind at all, and someone who many people recognise as being a slow starter, he was showing that he was very much a live dog in this fight. I do want to preface and kind of come clean that I did find out the result before watching this fight. I didn't watch it live. But that being said, you know, hindsight's 2020, but when I first started watching the fight, I could see how this potentially was going to be a rough night for Eubank, because Liam Smith, in my opinion, he took it back 5 years. This was the Liam Smith, a much closer version of Liam Smith to the version that fought Liam Williams back in 2017, and that was a very good version of Liam Smith. If you ask me, probably Smith at the peak of his powers, and he's managed to really take it back, and he just seems so much more dynamic in this fight. The second round came. That was a round that I gave to Smith. I felt like he was really starting to time some good offense, especially over Chris Eubank Jr.'s jab. And we know that Eubank Jr., his skills at long range are still quite suspect. He's working on them, but this was going to be the first real acid test against a good, capable pressure fighter. And I think we saw, or at least I saw, that they weren't really holding up. Smith was, I don't want to say timing him with ease, but when you consider it was the second round, Eubank's fresh, and he's an athletic guy, so you imagine he's quite sharp, and already Liam Smith was starting to get hands on him. It was looking like it was going to be a rough night. The third round, I remember being somewhat quiet. I gave that round to Eubank because he started to get through with his right uppercut, which we know is his trademark punch. Landed that on a couple of occasions. Didn't really seem to cause much damage to Smith, but you did get the feeling that Smith wouldn't be able to take too many of those. Although I was looking at Eubank Jr.'s movements and the way he was throwing these punches, bear in mind that they're the punches he likes to throw. And of course, once again, my perception is a little bit coloured by the fact that I knew the result before watching the fight. But I was seeing Eubank Jr. not look as sharp, not look as snappy, looking much less dynamic than we usually see him, because we know he's not the greatest technician, but he is an athlete. He's someone who throws a lot of hard, snappy punches in combination. But there was just like a looseness, a raggedness. There was a lack of tightness to his work. Whereas with Liam Smith, when he was on the counter, he was looking sharp. And then we go into the fourth round, and it's looking like it's shaping up to be a tough fight, a competitive fight, a close fight. And Liam Smith doesn't allow for that to happen, because he manages to back Eubank Jr. into a corner, I think is about a minute into the round, and he is just letting rip with a flurry of shots. And from what I can see, the angle wasn't the greatest, but he seems to land a couple of chopping right hands over the top of Eubank's guard, probably high on the head. I'm not sure, I wasn't able to see the replay. And Eubank Jr. is just slumped on the canvas before you know it. And this is just bizarre viewing. It really is. Because Eubank Jr. is just completely splattered across the canvas, as I say. He's almost falling on his own leg, a la George Groves. And he gets up, clearly very unstable. Many people, myself included, think the referee would have been justified to potentially stop it there. However, the referee wanted to give Eubank every chance, clearly. And Liam Smith goes in, looks to really finish the deal. Eubank's on the deck again, looks like he's slumped in between the ropes, and that's it, the fight is called off. And you can't argue with that. That was as clean a stoppage as I've seen in a while. So I don't think there are going to be any complaints about, it being stopped too early. I think it was stopped at just the right time. And I remember the ring announcers saying, or not the ring announcers, commentary team saying that Roy Jones was waving the towel anyway. So even if the referee hadn't jumped in, it was likely going to be over then. And yeah, you can't argue with that, I don't think, unless you seriously want to see Eubank Jr. separated from his senses. And maybe some of you do, but that was a very justified stoppage. And boy, this is going to be the last time I pick against Liam Smith, I think, because that was just... Credit to the people who are picking Liam Smith, because I saw this as a fairly routine victory for Eubank Jr. I did think that potentially Liam Smith will be able to get some work done if he times some of the defensive lapses of Eubank Jr., but I didn't think he would just be able to flatten Eubank Jr. like that, because that's really what happened. It warmed up into both guys kind of getting some work done, but Liam Smith, he looked strong in there as well. Eubank Jr. is a fighter who usually credited for his physical strength, and at a bare minimum, even if he loses a fight like he did against Billy Joe Saunders or George Groves, he's going to be able to drag them into a dogfight and make it rough and ready and get some work done there. But even early in the fight, when both guys are fresh, Liam Smith was just like a bull in comparison, really grounded and getting stuck in, looking really stable and just able to kind of wrestle Eubank Jr. with ease. And I feel like, even though maybe nobody's going to pick up on it, maybe Eubank Jr. was intimidated by that, because, as I say, he's someone who's been able to manhandle a lot of his opponents. He has the energy, he has the strength and the physicality, and he's willing to get stuck in. And that is usually, or sometimes, enough to make it a competitive fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if the physical presence and the strength of Liam Smith was enough to unsettle Eubank. And then you factor in Eubank Jr. not looking like the most intelligent fighter at long range, which we know he isn't. He's really still finding his feet as a long-range boxer. And Liam Smith being a capable and very competent pressure fighter, I wonder what was going through the head of Eubank Jr. throughout the course of this fight. Because I know by the end of the fight, his eyes were probably in separate orbit, and he was looking up at the lights thinking, have I reached the pearly white gates maybe? It's a little bit dark, but I'm sure it was certainly a shock to his system. So, yeah, just bizarre. Anything else to touch on in this fight? Credit to Liam Smith. I'm talking a lot about Eubank and his performance. Liam Smith has really catapulted himself back into the big time with this, because he's kind of been capturing some big wins over the past 2 years, because he had that fight in Russia against Kurbanov, lost, but some people felt he won. So this is definitely going to add to his momentum even more, because there was a lot on the line in terms of bragging rights. There was a lot at stake in terms of pride for this fight. So credit to Liam Smith, man. That's brilliant, like a real good result for him. Eubank Jr., as I said in the beginning, where do we go from here? Because Eubank Jr. has lost before, and lost convincingly against Billy Joe Saunders, even though fairly close fight, against George Groves, but he didn't lose like this. He didn't get blown away. He always had a strong finish to those fights, whereas in this, he was not allowed to finish. Just let that sink in. And I think, Eubank Jr. is a confident fighter, but he's always had a lot of faith in his chin, and it's almost like it's been something that he's been banking on. And I've always kind of winced at the thought of him parading as if he's got his dad's chin, because it's never really been tested. I guess you could say it was tested against Groves, but a lot of people forget that Eubank Jr. really got knocked down in the second round by a jab from Groves. It wasn't called a knockdown, but it clearly buckled his legs. And yeah, Groves, big puncher, but I always thought that it was misguided for Eubank Jr. to carry on as if he's just inherited his dad's punch resistance, because it's foolish to bank on your punch resistance anyway, but especially when it's not even yours really. It's something you expect to have inherited from your dad, And yeah, hindsight's 2020. But even back then, I always used to think, nah, I don't like the way this is going. And we can see here that Eubank Jr.'s chin well and truly cracked by Liam Smith, who was not messing around at all. He meant business. So some people are also going to point at the fact that Eubank Jr. still made the weight, the contracted weight for the Conor Benn fight in October, which fell through. It does make you ask questions. Has that potentially affected him at all? Because he did not look healthy when he made that weight. He looked, yeah, super shredded, but he didn't have the appearance of a normal human being. Like a human being who's healthy shouldn't be that shredded. He looked gaunt. He looked skeletal almost and malnourished. It was, yeah, does make you kind of wonder, because even though some time's elapsed, is it maybe had some residual effect on his body? Is he dealing with fatigue and stuff like that? Is he struggled in sparring? Is he taking too much damage in sparring? Because we know Eubank Jr. is famously someone who spars quite hard. And that's another thing as well. He was banking on prior experience against Liam Smith, as he has done against George Groves. And you have to factor in that that's a long time ago. Eubank Jr., Liam Smith brought up in the pre-fight build-up that he had hurt Eubank Jr. to the body. And Eubank Jr. didn't seem to deny it. He actually kind of conceded and was like, oh yeah, I'll let you have that. Which I think is basically an admission by him that he wants to kind of, oh yeah, sure, I'll let you have that one. Which basically means, I'm not denying it. Liam Smith did hurt me to the body, but largely irrelevant, because Liam Smith didn't really have to go to the body, because he had more than enough power to almost knock Eubank Jr.'s head into Rosette. So that is my take on this fight. I'll probably do a follow-up tomorrow once I've seen a better copy of this fight. But there we go. Liam Smith moves onwards and upwards after securing a big fourth round stoppage victory over the next gen Chris Eubank Jr. Wow, I did not expect that. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next video.